You're listening to the Business Mike podcast. Amazing interviews with entrepreneurs and industry thought leaders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Mike podcast. And joining me today is Dan. Dan, can you just let the listeners know a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, I am the Chief Chocolate Officer at Bissinger's Handcrafted Chocolatier. I grew up in the chocolate business. My parents started our first chocolate company before I was born in 1981, and my entire life has been literally surrounded in chocolate. And the most exciting thing is part about it is I get to work alongside my family every day in our production facility and retail stores.
Right. And we're recording this particular episode in the Easter season, which I would assume would be a very busy season for you. So can you just, for those that aren't in the chocolate business, what does this particular time look like for someone in your industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Easter is one of our largest holidays. From an order perspective, it comes right after Christmas as the second business holiday online for Bissingers and in our retail stores. And we have a very traditional collection from, different imported paper mache eggs filled with Bissinger's confections to, of course, the solid chocolate bunnies, marshmallow eggs, peanut butter eggs, jelly beans, and all of these, really limited edition Easter confections. Some of them go back 60 and 70 years. So if you were to go into a Bissinger shop in the 1970s, you would see the exact product that we're selling today. And some of them are brand new creations.
All right. Now, drawing on that line of brand new creations, what does it take to create a new flavor of chocolate, a new type of chocolate? Where do you draw inspiration from? And, what does the testing process look like?
That's a great question. My brother, sister, and head candy maker, the four of us like to sit down, and we find that the best, on a minimum of a weekly basis, we find the best inspiration is when things are very loose. So we like to sit down, and whether it's over just in the conference room or whether we just sit down on a couple buckets in the warehouse and just talk about, what's working, what's not working, and does anyone have any new ideas? And so many amazing products have come from this, informal collaboration where there have been times where, I'm thinking of one creation off the top of my head that we did was for Halloween last year. And I had the idea on a high level of we wanted to do this collection. And the theme of it was that all of the confections would be in the shape of a skull for Halloween. But it was, my brother had come up with one of the flavor components. My sister had come up with one of them. I had come up with one of them. Our head candy maker had come up, and then the decoration and the styling of it. So the four of us, as we walked out of this meeting, the four of us had contributed so much more than just me sitting down at the table coming up with this ourselves. And it was a phenomenal collection, and it sold out. And so we really feel like because it's a handmade product and there's so much creativity that goes involved into it, if you start to add restrictions to deadlines and sit-down meetings, and it becomes less fluid. So we like to keep them fun. Sometimes it's over a drink because we're actually opening a cocktail lounge, so we're testing out different cocktails as well. So sometimes we'll go over to the bar and work on new ideas over a glass of bourbon, and that also really contributes to the process as well.
Right. Now, you mentioned the store that you're opening up. And when I think back to a period like maybe COVID, when we had the lockdown, there was a debate between delivering products online versus the physical brick and mortar stores. So I'm just curious as to, in terms of your business, the business model itself, how it has evolved over time with all these changes, online delivery, and now you're opening a store. How do you evolve and account for all these changes in the environment?
We're seeing that retail brick and mortar is coming back faster and more powerful than we ever imagined. And so the online division is still very strong. And in fact, it's had a really strong start to 2025 already. And, that we'll never lose focus of that, because we believe that the closer we can connect with our customers on a direct to consumer basis is very important. However, we're seeing that with retail being so strong, there's two components to that for us. Number one is our wholesale division. Selling our products and other retailers is growing very quickly. We're very excited for that. In the last year, we've launched into all the Barnes and Noble stores nationwide. We're also in a lot of in the paper source stores. We're selling into Dillard's department stores now. So there's been quite a bit of growth. We just launched in all the world markets, our chocolate bar. So from the wholesale side, we're able to get our product out on more retail shelves at a faster rate than expected. But on top of that, we're looking at, do we add more of our own Bissinger's branded boutiques as well to deliver the customer experience, what we have in our St. Louis locations, to deliver that in other places. And so that's a very big project that we're going through right now. And we're excited to kind of see what the future of that looks like. But I think they're all connected, because I think if you become a Bissinger's consumer through our direct-to-consumer channel, and then you see it out at a Barnes & Noble, for example, or if you go into one of our boutiques, I think the most important thing is to keep all three of those business units very closely connected in harmony. And I think it's going to work really well because of that.
Yeah, and that brings me to the next question, which was the customer experience of your services and products, particularly in the brick and store case, because I would think that it's compared to any other brick and store entity that isn't necessarily related to chocolate, but just the overall experience, the certain standards that maybe they would expect. So how do you craft a unique experience for your customers who want to physically experience you, because it now goes beyond the actual chocolate? It's about the aroma, the emotion that they have.
Absolutely. Yeah, we truly believe in a white glove service from beginning to end. So one of the things in our boutiques is you'll find that there's a candy case, and so you can actually pick out your own pieces to create your own collection. So we have all of our truffles and caramels and French creams and nut pieces. And so one of our stores has a 20-foot long candy counter where you can go down and craft your own box, which is a unique experience that we can only do at the retail level. But we'll hand tie a bow on every box, and we can build a tower. If you want to come in and you're looking for 20 or 30 boxes, we'll be happy just to ship it for you. So you don't even have to take it with you. So in the retail perspective, when you walk into a Bissinger's boutique, it truly is this unbelievable experience. And we want to make sure that if we do additional locations, that we replicate that, because, I've been on the consumer side at Bissinger's and the owner side at Bissinger's, and we want to make sure, and I've enjoyed both. So we want to make sure that we continue to scale that model and truly be unique, because the brand is such a unique brand with a 350-year legacy, that we want the retail experience to kind of have that unique feeling when you enter the store.
Yeah, and something has just come to mind. How do you balance, in terms of conveying your brand, the line between legacy, in other words, trying to show the history of the brand, versus being modern and urban and up to speed with what's happening? It's almost as if at some point those two may clash. So I don't know how it is that you manage that.
I personally believe that in our business is a very hands-on business, and we do everything we can to listen to the customer. So we read the product reviews. We talk to our retail managers who are directly talking with customers. We do a review with our customer service team from our direct-to-consumer side. We listen to our buyers out in the industry from the wholesale perspective, and we really want to see what is in. There's so many traditional Bissinger's confections, for example, that the Bissinger's recipe book, the last one that we use is from 1899. So the company started in 1668, but we're using the latest, the last Bissinger recipe book given, from the family to the companies from 1899. So many of the confections that we do today stem from that. Even if we create a new flavor, a lot of times the base recipe was in the book itself, and then we create a new flavor based on it. But we absolutely don't want to become a brand that loses relevance, and we want to stay innovative. But we also want to make sure that we're, so we'll react quickly. We have a model that we can test. We have at our candy kitchen, we have a retail store here where it allows us to test something very quickly. And with so many factory tours that we give, it's almost a new audience every day. And if it works, then we'll take it to the next level. COVID was a phenomenal example. I used to say I can test anything for $500, because that would be basically the cost of photo and some packaging design and to put copy on the website. So if we had a new idea for a petit four, for example, we can have a photo done, put it on the website, send an email out, send a text out to 50, 60, 80,000 people, and then watch the results. And when everybody was focusing on their computer and online business was was the medium, if it sold right away, we knew we had something that was strong, or potentially strong, and then we watched what the customer reviews were, and then we watched what the reorder rate was. But if it fell flat, and we knew that we had a beautiful photo, we were representing the product, in its best light, and it was priced right, and if the customer wasn't interested in it, then we just moved on. So we really learned that from COVID. Now we do it in retail and online, and so it allows our core customer base to see a lot of new innovation. And then but we listen to what they say. If it doesn't work, we try not to push something that's not going to work, because we need it to, especially if it goes into wholesale, we need it to be able to scale. Because if it doesn't work for the buyer, then it's a bad mark for the brand.
Yeah, and as an organization, I'd just like to hear from you. What does a good customer review sound like to you? In other words, what are the elements that you look out for in a customer review that's either good or bad? What are those key things you tend to zero down on?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'd like to see patterns. So, for example, because of the perishability of a product, sometimes if a product is damaged in transit or melts, that we're going to make sure we're looking at that, and those are one-off things. But if we have a bunch of patterns where people says, I don't like, this product change, or I don't like the taste of this, that's really where it hits home for us. When we see, the best reviews are people that say, there's two styles. One of them is, absolutely the best I've ever had, way to go, Bissingers. That's always a very positive one. But the ones that really, really hit home for me is when a customer says something like, just ordered the bear claws. I've been ordering these for 30 years. They taste the same as they did in the 1980s. You've had a customer for life. So when you see a customer that tells us that what we're making today is authentically perfect as it was when they became a customer 20 or 30 years ago, to me, that is so important, that our, the quality and craftsmanship of our candy makers has stood up to the test of time has kept this customer for an entire generation, and they're still telling us how good it is.
All right. And on this particular program, we tend to talk about customer experience quite a bit. And you've mentioned this throughout our conversation today. So I just wanted to know, or for you to really elaborate, for those that don't particularly value customer experience and this feedback in their businesses, just how important that is for a business to survive in today's market.
Yeah, I mean, there's the old adage, the customer's always right, and that's only true 90% of the time, but it is 90%. I mean, the customer, we are all employees of the customer. If the customer does not want us anymore, then there is no business. And so we have to, make sure we listen to them and make sure that our retail stores appeal to them, make sure that our catalog, there's so much competition now, whether it's in the retail world or the wholesale world, or whether it's the catalog there's, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, there was probably 1,000 websites, and now there's probably 1,000 websites a minute that's launching, so there's so many other reasons for a customer to go somewhere else. And so we need to make sure that we always, I always say it's 110% effort from manufacturing to delivery. Even though we don't personally deliver the package, we need to make sure that it arrives in perfect condition. And so what we can control is the packaging material, the strength of the box. I mean, what gets me the worst is we have sometimes 20 or 30 people involved in making one product, from the candy kitchen to the production floor, to the packing department, to the warehouse. And then all of a sudden the product arrives smashed, which is a 1 in 1,000 situation. But, it's almost like we just let 20 people down that handcrafted this product. So we need to go, make sure that our corrugated boxes that we are using, it's the correct corrugated thickness, the right integrity, to make sure that we deliver that product in perfect condition. So so many little things add up to become really, really important. And, I'm just hypersensitive to all of it. And I review all of it. And it's part of my daily cadence where I get in every morning. I look at website reviews, and then I look at customer service reviews, and then we have a matrix of it. And we try to take it in. you'll never be perfect. You can't satisfy everyone, but I believe that from the brand perspective of going back 300 plus years, that this is the discipline that was taken of the people in my position before me. So it's a responsibility that we need to make sure that our leadership team continues with.
Yeah. And I just wanted to touch on that issue that you mentioned there of the legacy of the business being a family business. So for those that have family businesses, what's the secret to keeping it going within the family and not selling out or it dying along the way? What has sustained this as a family business from your point of view?
That's a great question. We get offers, I would say, every few months from companies to buy us. And although we're flattered, we have no aspirations of selling. I mean, it literally is in our DNA to be in this business. And that my parents are involved. They're starting to step back from the day-to-day operations. So really my brother, sister, and I handle most of the day-to-day operations of the business. And the key thing is we collaborate on new innovation together. But at the end of the day, each one of us really does something different in the business. And I think that is what is the best part. So from, my day-to-day core responsibilities are different than my sister's, which are different than my brother. So the three of us together really kind of, we don't step on each other's toes and butt heads. And it allows for less conflict. And there have been, from COVID to packaging issues to, gaining new customers to losing customers to, we had 15 years ago a roof issue where water got in the, we've been through in the last 20 plus years of doing this, crises that we've had to manage. And at the end of the day, when there's an issue at 3 a.m. and we get a call or I make the call to the family, every one of us shows up and we just roll our sleeves back and say, let's fix it, whatever it is. If we have to go mop floors because of a pipe burst, or if we have to go make chocolate Easter bunnies because it's COVID year and no one could show up to work that day, there's that feeling that at the end of the day, the family is always going to come forward and get it done. And there's so much of a comfort level to that. And I think that's why we really get along and make it work so well.
Oh, wow. That's very good to hear, because a lot of family businesses, particularly here where I am in Uganda, what tends to happen is the generations sometimes veer into other professions. Someone could become a lawyer and they're really attracted by the law, and they say, I'd rather be a lawyer. This fits more my personality than the family business. And then along the way, family business dies. So it's good to hear that in your case, you guys took this on and embraced it, and obviously have kept the ship going. So that's good to hear.
Sometimes we're steering the ship as we're plugging a hole in the side of it, but that's just how it works.
As long as it's above water, that's the main thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as we conclude the interview, I just wanted to hear from you, for anyone that's watching this particular podcast that hasn't heard of Bissingers, and maybe this is their first time hearing about Bissingers, and probably it's available where they're listening from. How would you describe Bissingers to somebody that is hearing this for the first time and maybe wants to try them out?
That's a great question. Being that the product line, the recipe, the core recipes that we hand make go back over a century. In the last 100 years, there's been, preservatives and artificial flavors and artificial colors and artificial ingredients and different ways of fillers and everything. The Bissinger's recipes don't have any of that, because in the 1800s, it was only pure whole ingredients. Our caramel is made with cane sugar, Madagascar bourbon vanilla, and heavy whipping cream and butter. And you taste that. And then it's all handmade. So it's, artisans are hand decorating and are hand packing the boxes. So when you taste a Bissinger's confection, it is just authentically pure and delicious. Whereas, a lot of recipes and brands over the years have made just all of these changes to the recipe because of ingredient costs have gone up, because labor costs have gone up so much. And we truly stand true to how the candy was made when a Bissinger family member owned the company. And to me, that's the most important thing. And so that is the biggest takeaway that I have is, the last Bissinger owned the company in the 1940s. And if you tried a Bissinger caramel today versus 1944, it would be the exact same product. And that's the true test of time. The great thing is we've created a lot of confections since then. But the authenticity of what the brand was yesterday is the same it is today, and it's the same as what it's going to be tomorrow.
All right. Well, I was visualizing it as you're saying it, and for me, it's as though you're time traveling as you eat Bissingers, because you're traversing that whole history of the product itself, which is quite incredible. Yeah, that's good to hear. Right. So as we conclude, Dan, can you let us know how we can get our hands on Bissingers, what countries you're in, and where in those countries we can get our hands on this fine product?
Absolutely. So everything right now is in the United States. You can shop at bissingers.com or one of our retail boutiques in St. Louis, Missouri, or any of our retail partners such as Barnes & Noble stores, Paper Source, Dillard's, World Market. We're also in about 2,000 independent shops and boutiques across the United States as well.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this particular interview, and I thank you so much, Dan. I look forward to getting my hands on one of them. I know if I order for them within the US, they can ship them here depending on what I order. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.